Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today, I got this email from OpenAI about a couple new announcements, and the one that really excites me is this function calling. I couldn't quite understand it at first, but let's look through this email real quick. First of all, 25% reduction in costs, obviously a bonus, a benefit. The other one is longer context. We talked about this in a previous video with Anthropic Claude, where they have 100K token context, which is fantastic. chat-gpt GPT 3.5 bumping up to 16K is pretty awesome. GPT-4 is limited to 8K, except for a very limited subgroup. It can go up to 32. So that gives you more text to work with. It remembers more things in the past. And so these are all great things. I'm going to enjoy the lower cost for sure. But the big one here is function calling. Now, let's read this through real quick. By describing functions in your prompts, the model can intelligently output a JSON object containing arguments to call these functions based on user input. I completely missed it the first time, but what it's saying is that if you tell ChatGPT what your function is, it will be stricter, it will be smarter about what its output is. So one example, you might say, list out all of the brands, list out the Fortune 500 companies, okay? ChatGPT, or GPT in general, might just one after the next, I don't know, Apple, new line, Google, new line, Microsoft, new line. Or it might have Apple, comma, Google, comma, Microsoft, comma, blah, blah, blah. And so there are all these formats. And what it's saying is by using this function calling, it can be more clever about it. It can always return a structured JSON so you know what format it should be in. People who do prompt engineering have already done this really well. So they already ask ChatGPT, please output in a JSON format structured in this way, and so on. I think the genesis of this is the ChatGPT plugins. So nowadays you can ask ChatGPT about a trip, have Expedia start doing things for you, maybe even booking a ticket, Instacart or whatever, start buying things, start adding, start saving things. So clearly they're interacting with other pieces of the internet, and code requires very structured inputs and outputs, and GPT can be a little unpredictable. Even with absolutely top-notch prompt engineering, sometimes you can't fully predict, and the last thing you want is somebody booking tickets and last second, because of ChatGPT, you can't actually check out, or you can't do it properly. So let's actually look at what's happening here. Oh no. This is the documentation. So over here, this gives you a real quick roadmap here. You have a chatbot that answers a question by calling an external API, e.g. like ChatGPT plugins. So there's some function out there. You may run, let's say you run Expedia, and there's something like buy tickets. You might have number of seats, flight number, adult, child. I'm not even sure what else you might ask. But you have a couple inputs to your function. You tell them this is how the function should look like. And then you start getting that natural language question. So you might ask, how many seats do you need, what the flight number is, and whether you're a child or an adult. And at the end of the day, you're going to get some. This isn't even right. This is what I should be looking at. You're going to get some JSON file returned that has number of seats, flight number, and the type of person you are. And so, again, this was hard to digest. I didn't quite understand. And the easiest way is to actually copy and paste into, to look at the code. So I copied and pasted this into my VS Code. I didn't have the top here because, of course, you need an OpenAI key, and that's always hidden. But let's walk through this example here. First of all, they have this dummy function. It doesn't really do anything, but if you give it a location and a unit, it's going to return weather info. This is a JSON or a dictionary that gives you your location, temperature, and forecast. Now, being a dummy function, it's always going to be 72 degrees. It's always going to be sunny and windy, so there's no logic. But you can imagine you have other systems that are doing this calculation connected to other services and so on. So you have this function. Step one in this model, you're going to make a call to OpenAI. So you need that new model as of June 13th. We're using 3.5, but it does work on GPT-4 as well. And you get that question, what's the weather like in Boston? And so naturally you want this forecast to come back. This is the key here. This is what's new. You can now specify a function. You can specify a function in your chat completion. Previously, you don't have that parameter. And here, you're going to give a name. So here, get current weather and description. Most importantly to me is you're going to get parameters. So in this case, you're going to get location and unit. Both of these are strings. And they even give a little description here just to, again, tip off what chat-gpt might use. In this case, this is an enum where you get discrete options. So if you have always true or false, or between 3 people or 3 names or 3 options, this will guarantee that. I wouldn't say guarantee, but this will strongly push the model to respond with one of those answers. And also what's required. I guess, I see this one is given already. So from there, you're going to read the response here. Next, check if the model wants to call a function. I am not sure what this actually means. So if message.get function call, I see. So in this case, function call is set to auto. I am not sure what the options are here. The model decided to call a function. So I suspect you get the option of whether it's true or false. And so in this case, you get an option. What this means is you get an option, so ChatGPT can say, yes, you should run the function, or no, you shouldn't. So in this case, what's the weather like in Boston? I can't really see why you wouldn't call it, but for example, going back to our Expedia, you may be chatting with a person or the chatbot and say, never mind, I don't want the tickets. Then ChatGPT or GPT will respond saying, don't call the function, don't run the buy ticket function. So we'll check this, we'll get a response, and then we're going to check whether function call is true or not. Next up, we get which function to call. So in this case, you'll notice that functions, you actually get it's a list. You could have had more than one function. So you could buy tickets, check flight number, check details, check arrival date, whatever, all the way down, and your interaction will pick one of the functions. So in this case, you'll just pick get current weather, and then you'll say yes, you should run it. And in this case, you actually call the function. So in this case, if true, then you're going to find the function, and then you're going to run the function. Send the model the info on the function call and the function response. So, of course, once we get the data here, that's 72 degrees, sunny and windy, this is not readable information. This is the output of your function. This is how programmers will look at it. But it should look nothing like that in the chatbot. So you're going to enter the response right back into the chat completion so that it can parse through, and it might give a nice response saying the weather is sunny and windy, it's 72 degrees Fahrenheit, instead of this weird dictionary file that only programmers would understand. So I'm pretty interested in running this just to see if it runs as is. So we're going to run it. And you can see that the response here is the current weather in Boston, Massachusetts is sunny and windy with a temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Very natural kind of response. And we can play around with this a little bit, but what I wanted to do is print this message because I'm curious how this actually looks. So let's run this one more time. Okay. Wonder why that is. Okay, so in this case, we should have run this function call, arguments, get weather. I think we're going to need to go back to a drawing board here. Why is that? Oh, I see. We haven't... No, that's not right. So we're going to run this conversation. We get the response. Let's just print the response instead. Okay. Okay, so I'm confused. So in this case, choices, we have the function call. The reason is, of course, we decide to call a function. It gives you the arguments. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I was just reading this incorrectly. I thought this was just new line for location, but location's in Boston, Massachusetts, and it doesn't require a Fahrenheit response because it's not required. So it has an actual argument. It's going to give the name of the function, and I think just by having a function call existing here, it means we should call the function. So the next step, okay, first off, we go, what's the weather like in Boston? Because we run this function thing, it's not giving any sort of response. It's just saying connect it to the function, and that's why I didn't recognize what the response is. I expected some sort of message like this, but of course there is no message. There's no content because we didn't ask it to. The content that's returning is go ask this other service. And so in this case, get current weather and location. Then, now that we have a response, which is what function to run, it will check and then run the function with the right parameters. So we go back to a message, get these things, and then we run it again through chat-gpt. sorry, GPT. I'm going to keep making that mistake. And then now that is a more standard chat call where your response is a message. So, long story short, I had real problems trying to understand what was happening in that description of function calling, but now that we ran through the example, I have a much clearer understanding, and hopefully you guys do too. And I have always thought that the magic and where a lot of people are going to make a lot of money in creating these GPT apps is starting to cross it with other things. And this will give you a very reliable way to run functions and connect things, because something that's happened to me a lot is bad prompting, and it gives a response that doesn't match what you intended, and so my code doesn't know how to deal with it. In this case, hopefully every time it's going to say, this is the function you run, this is the parameters you're going to feed into it. Makes it nice and easy, and we can go much further than get current weather. So I hope you are all very excited about this, because I think immediately I'm thinking of possible uses here, really just to smooth the process out. We're going to cover more on OpenAI for sure. I think the 16K token is going to be worth a test. Might not do a whole video on it, but stay tuned next week for more interesting unscripted coding content. Thanks for watching. Bye.